Okay, so as promised, fractions, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, but only basic fractions, okay? Slideshow from beginning. Title's about to come back up again, so if you didn't quite get the title, here it comes. Adding and subtracting fractions. On. Ooh, low battery. I'm going to have to keep it moving. Okay, adding and subtracting fractions. Consider the following sum. 3/4 plus 1/8. What do we need in order to add fractions? Big moment. How far did you get with fractions in grade 7 and grade 8? What do you have to have for adding and subtracting? Common denominator. Okay, we got to have a common denominator for adding and subtracting only. You don't need it for multiplying and dividing. Once again, just like integers, multiplying and dividing is the easier one. Adding and subtracting, there's a little more to it. So we need a common denominator. Please write that down one more time. I know you probably beat that to death in grade 7 and 8, but let's make sure one more time we've got that down. Why do we need a common denominator? The reason we do a common denominator is whenever you add something, it better be the same type of stuff. You always got to add the same type of stuff. And a common denominator makes sure the fractions are the same type of stuff. Here's a visual example that you don't have to copy down, but I just want you to see one time. And you can watch it on the PowerPoint later if you're wondering about common denominator. Here's 3/4. Geez, maybe I'm going to have pizza for dinner tonight. That picture reminds me of that Godfather's garlic. You have the garlic bread from Godfather's? So good. It's almost better than the pizza. Anyways, there it is, 3/4. There's a beautiful picture of 3/4. 3 out of the 4 pieces of garlic toast there. Now here's a picture of another piece of garlic toast. I don't know if in your family you have to do this. I have to do it in my family. I've got to cut the last one up into extra pieces so everybody gets the same amount. Everybody freaks out if they don't get the same amount of garlic toast. So this one's cut into 8 pieces. Let's say at the end of the party, this is what I'm left with. I'm left with 3/4 of this garlic toast, 1/8 of this garlic toast. How am I going to figure out the total fraction? What do I got to do to these things to make it so I can really add up how many pieces I have left? And the answer with common denominator is turn these into 8ths as well. Make sure they're all 8ths. Then I can add them up really nicely. How do you do that easily? You take these garlic toasts and you crack them in half. And instead of 3/4, and this is the whole adding and subtracting part of this lesson in one moment, what happens when I cut them all in half? Instead of 3/4, what fraction is in the picture there? 6/8. Are you ready to make a rule about fractions? What can you do to fractions to change their form? What's the rule on what you can do to change the numbers in the fraction? We did something. We went 3/4, and instead we're going to go to 6/8. What do we do? Multiply both the numbers. Do whatever you want. Multiply by anything you want, but do it to both of the numbers. And so here I get 6/8 instead of 1/8. 7/8. If you're totally like, I remember all that now that you're saying it, you don't have to copy any of this part down. I'm going to do another example in a minute. But that's there in the PowerPoint if you ever have to look back on it and go, what is it with common denominators again? How does this all work? Remember, none of this on a pre-quiz on Wednesday. All the fraction stuff's on the pre-quiz, not till Thursday. So you got still time. If you're like, yeah, it's okay. I remember fractions. Well, if you have trouble with it at all, though, the videos are right there. Do you need more time to copy down what you want out of that slide? Yes? Okay, yeah, take your time. That's the whole explanation of adding and subtracting fractions in a nutshell. And multiplying and dividing, I hope you remember, is way easier. We won't get crazy with fractions till Wednesday. Then we'll go nuts. We'll spend Wednesday getting nuts with fractions. More time? Good? Okay, just an example. Here's how you would actually do them. You're not going to draw garlic toast pictures every single time. This is how you would do them. Well, let me say the questions one more time. When you're adding fractions, what do you have to have before you can add them? common denominator. And what denominator is going to work good for this particular question? How did you get 20? Yeah, she's all over it. Like, she's really saying some high-end stuff there. The lowest common multiple. Yeah? Now, some people might have looked at it and said, oh, I just multiplied 4 and 5 together. That will work. That will always work for common denominator. You can just multiply the two of them together. It might be bigger than you had to use, though. You could have maybe gone smaller than that. And what lowest common multiple means is you take the 4. If you're not sure what denominator to use, you start counting by 4s. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. Then you start counting by 5s. 5, 10, 15, 20. And the first number that appears on both lists is the best common denominator. Multiplying them together will always work, but sometimes it'll be way bigger than you had to go. So, what was the rule? What can you do to each of these fractions? He said, multiply by whatever you want, but just do the same top and bottom. So what number should I multiply top and bottom by here if I want to end up with 20ths? 5. So 5 top and bottom. How about this one? 4 top and bottom, right? Pretty straightforward stuff with simple fractions like this. And that's all that's in the homework tonight is simple fractions. More complicated fractions come Wednesday. So I multiplied by 5 and 5 on the first one, but 4 and 4 on the second one, and now I'm home free. Most people are really good at fractions once they're in this situation. 15 20ths and 8 20ths. Add them together, I get 23 20ths. Now, your grade 8 teacher might have been very on about this and said, no, that's an improper fraction. We're going to find out that improper fractions are very handy. They're very valuable. We'll find this out on Wednesday. But generally speaking, when you get to your final answer, you don't want to leave it as an improper fraction. You want to go to mixed. That's usually the form we want it in. How do I get to mixed out of this? Yeah, see how many times that 20 goes into the 23. So if you want, if I've got 23 slices of garlic toast, out of a 20-piece garlic toast container, I've got one whole complete container, and then I've got 3 extra pieces out of 20. The reason I put it like this is, yes, I want your final answer in mixed form, but we're going to find out in the next couple of days there's sometimes when actually improper is probably better. So let's not get too crazy with judging these fractions and calling them improper. You can do the same thing with subtraction. With subtraction, you also need a common denominator. What's the best common denominator for this 5/6 minus 1/3 question? 6, yeah. You could go to 18. 18 will work, but 6 is going to be easier to do. So I multiply the 1/3 by 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom, and then I subtract the two fractions. Subtract the tops, the numerators, keep the bottom the same. But here's another one where the answer needs a little more work. 3/6 isn't the best possible answer. What can we do to that 3/6? Knock it down to 1/2. So just like what before when we said we can multiply the top and bottom of a fraction by whatever we want, we can also divide it by whatever you want. And when you get to the final answer, you certainly want to reduce it as much as possible and get it down to 1/2 there. Does this all ring a bell? Usually schools beat fractions to death.